Welcome to The Road Less Traveled with Tiffany Rosenbaum. This podcast is about sharing the success and failure of entrepreneurs. Join in and learn from others' mistakes so you don't have to go through the same hardships in business. Now let's welcome your host, business coach, real estate investor, and proud wife and mom, Tiffany Rosenbaum.
I got married pretty young, typical, right? I got married, I think around, what was I, like 19 years old or something like that, 19, 20 years old. Had 3 kids with them. Let's see, November 2019, things began to unravel pretty bad.
Right before COVID then, or?
Yeah, right before COVID. I made a decision. I found out some information. I made a decision that I needed to put myself first a little bit more. I don't know how much I'm supposed to go into this, but I think when you are in a 12-year marriage, I was in a 12-year marriage, and you, as a woman, me personally, I invested so much into that marriage, so much into our family unit. 3 kids. My last child, I had to do IVF with.
Wow, that's emotional in itself.
Yeah. Which is crazy because with my first child, I didn't even have to try. Her name's Ashlyn. She's 15 years old now. And then my second child, I had to try a little bit, had a miscarriage in between, and then I finally got pregnant with him. So she's 15, he's 11. Well, he'll be 11 this month. So a little bit of a age gap there. And then from Colton to River, who's my baby, he's 5 now, there's like a 6-year gap. So I really had to go through something that every woman, I would imagine, it would be hard for, right? To be like yearning for another child and not be able to have that child and have to go through in vitro. And I bring that up because when I had to go through in vitro, I have a heart murmur. I was born with a heart murmur.
You still have it then, it never went away.
Right. I was born with it. It's never really caused me any problems though. You know, we played sports. I played tons of sports growing up. But where it starts to become a problem is, understanding the body, I guess, is a little bit of what we got to discuss here. So understanding I have a very high vasovagal response. Okay. So anytime before I got into yoga, before I understood the importance of the vagus nerve and having good vagal tone, let's rewind to when I was doing the IVF, right? So I have this very high vasovagal response. And when I'm under a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, right? A lot of people, their vagus nerve becomes stimulated and they can become either lightheaded, nauseous, tense, like all these different responses when it comes to anxiety and stress, or even depression, right? A lot of people, I'll talk to a lot of my students and, they'll become nauseous or sick or dizzy or migraines, all these different things. But anyway, so my certain experience was during the IVF. I went under for them to put the embryos inside me, right? Yep. And my heart stopped twice.
Oh, wow.
Under that whole experience. And so I had to go to a heart doctor and everything for them to, I guess, check me out or follow up with me or whatever, make sure I was good to go for actually delivering the child, which ended up being great. Honestly, I had my first home birth. It was amazing.
Wow.
And I went all natural. It was the best pregnancy.
Did you go with a doula or did you have a doctor there that came in?
I had a doula and a midwife.
Okay.
That came in. And so it was a really magical experience. River was actually a twin and I lost one. So,
oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
Honestly though, Tiffany, could you imagine if I had twins right now? It was kind of like a blessing in disguise. I hate to say losing a child is ever a blessing, but for me, knowing that now I would have gone through breast cancer and a divorce all within a year, I would have pulled out my hair if I had twins.
But let's move back on that. I think you say that from looking back on life, and I think when you can look at things as a blessing instead of a curse, you can enjoy the journey a lot more. But when you had River, now where were you in your relationship with your first husband? Because wasn't that when it was kind of deteriorating quite quickly?
It was kind of crazy actually how quickly things started to fall apart or unravel. So, my ex struggled for a long time. I want to say within the first year of our marriage, I was like, well, something's horribly wrong. He struggled with mental health really bad. And throughout our whole marriage, I was kind of his consistent person there that would help him through that.
You were a psychologist, kind of, in essence. I mean, I hate to say that, but sometimes marriages become that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you say that, but I was his sounding board, and I would kind of walk him through it. I would help him go to work. I'd help him do a lot of the things that maybe he wouldn't be able to do necessarily without some sort of help. So when I was pregnant with River, we were living at our old home that we had like renovated together, and it was great. And then I got pregnant with twins, and something changed inside him. He was like, we need a bigger house, we need a bigger car, we need. And it like nothing was good enough all of a sudden for this bundle of joy that would be like twins at the moment, you know? So he was like, let's go to Hawaii. We need one more trip. We've never been to Hawaii. Let's go on one more trip. And just for us before we're like swamped with twins, right?
Yeah.
So we went to Hawaii. I didn't feel good about it. And looking back, it kind of bothers me like a lot that I didn't listen to that pit in my stomach. I said it. And then I was like, I don't think we should go because I've worked so hard to get twins, like to get these babies. You know, I've changed my body, did all these things, prayed, cried, like, you know, all these things that I had to inject inside me, the money spent, the time, the energy. And he was like, well, if the doctor, you know, clears us, then I think we should go. And the doctor wouldn't clear us until I was at least 9 weeks, and I was 9 weeks on the spot. And so he was like, I mean, you can go, but be very careful, you know. And I kept telling him, like, I don't feel good about it. As soon as we got on the plane, I started miscarrying.
Oh my goodness.
I miscarried all the way to Hawaii, which is crazy. I had to, as soon as we arrived, well, I shouldn't say I miscarried, but I started bleeding. So when I got to the hospital, they were like, the child is still there, like they're both still there, but this one is very, very weak. Please be careful, all this stuff. So I went really light in Hawaii, and as soon as I got back, they were like, it's not there. The baby has been miscarried or whatever.
Wow.
Whatever the terminology is you want to use. And then we ended up moving to a bigger home that he wanted us to get, right? Mm-hmm. And as soon as we moved, it was like as soon as we moved, the pressure, I feel like the pressure of having 3 children or one on the way and 2 other children, and then like the bigger home and whatever. I don't know. You know, we can talk about the masculine energy and men just in general and like the pressures that they undergo and like being a provider. Because I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. So he was providing, and so my heart goes out to men, and especially my ex in a lot of ways for that kind of pressure. But it was almost like he began to unravel. He began to come apart a little bit in that year. So when I had River, it was November of 2018. And then I found out a few weeks before his first birthday. Oh God. Well, I found out that he was having an affair pretty much. And it was devastating.
That is devastating.
It was devastating. And I think as a woman, it does something to your heart. It does something to your heart to find out that your man wasn't loyal, right? And at the time, like when you're in the thick of it, you take it very personally. And it's like, well, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why didn't he choose me? You know, why is he choosing somebody else? And you go through this whole process of like, it shakes you to your core. And the self-confidence you thought that you had, it diminishes. You know, at least for me, that's my experience. So November 2019, I decided that we needed to be separated, pretty much.
Take me through the part where you looked in the mirror a little bit, like where you're like, okay, this is where the decision came. That day, like, take me through that.
Yeah, so when I found out, let's back up for a second, because initially when I had found out that he was having an affair, I was actually on I had been going to counseling already, because up until this point, I could tell something was horribly wrong. Like I thought my husband was sick, like really sick, because his mental state, at the time I didn't know that it was his mental state. I thought my my husband at the time was having like actually physically ill because he was passing out all the time. He was having all these migraines. Well, the migraines were making him pass out. The migraines were making him vomit. And then all of a sudden, like, different things started happening, and he lost like 20 pounds in like 2 weeks. And so we were going to this doctor and that doctor. So I had just had a baby, pretty much, and I was taking care of 2 kids, and I was also taking care of my ex that was just unraveling, right, falling apart. So when November hit, I had been going to a counselor to try to like work through all this, and she recommended I take a trip, like just me, take River with me because he was so young. And I ended up inviting my sister, Denise, who lives up in Peoria, which is kind of nice, yeah. But she came with me, and I just remember having this sick feeling, you know. And so we were up there. The point is I was having this sick feeling, and I finally listened to my intuition. And I was like, this is like, it's making me sick to my stomach. I have to listen to it. So then I followed through. I found out that he was having an affair. And as soon as I did that, I made the decision that I wasn't coming back to the house until he was out.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't even come back. I just flew directly home to Texas. I came home, I had my sister pack my stuff, and then I went to Texas. And I just had people watch my kids, and off I went. I took River with me because I was still breastfeeding, but other than that, you know. And I stayed in Texas for like 2 weeks.
Now, we talked, and he was a little bit emotional and unstable, and would take it out on you. But to go straight from Texas was probably the smartest thing, because a lot of times women will go back to the home, and then they can't make that decision because that person has such a grab on them.
Yeah. Well, I don't like using the word narcissist lightly. Like, I think it's overdiagnosed and just kind of thrown about. And so I won't even say that he is a narcissist because he hasn't been diagnosed. But he has a lot of narcissistic tendencies. And there was a lot of verbal, emotional, psychological abuse, and some situations that might have even verged on some physical abuse. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't want to like...
No, we talked about this, and that's why I say flying straight to Texas had to have been the smartest decision, because you went away, so you were away enough to listen to your soul, and then you didn't go back to the home, which 9 times out of 10 women, the statistics, they'll go back to the man at least 7 times before they're able to leave, or they stay because they don't know how to leave. And so I think that was an amazing decision. Go straight to your family, be there, be able to think and process everything that was going on. That's amazing. But as you did this, and after you had River, you filed for a divorce and all that. Now, a month after your divorce was final, what did you find out?
Well, a month after my divorce, I found out I had breast cancer, which is kind of crazy.
And you were young for breast cancer.
Yeah, 36. I was 36 when I found out. It's kind of crazy. So what happened was, to answer your earlier question, I flew straight to Texas. I was there for like 2 weeks, and then I decided to come back. And I like saged my home. I was like, this is like, ugh. Like, it just felt crummy. It felt gritty. It felt like gross to be in that type of energy coming back into the home. And so I like saged the whole home. I like said a prayer, and I was like, dear Lord, please. Like, it was a heavy, heavy energy. And I think a lot of women, they don't get that opportunity to escape. But I knew, and like take a second for themselves to process everything. Like, they go directly back into it, like you were saying. And
it's important to process it.
It's important.
So important.
Because the reason I bring up the narcissistic tendencies is because usually people that carry those type of tendencies, they're able to manipulate the women that are like, or the male, whatever relationship you're in. But like mine, I knew he would be able to manipulate me into staying, or into thinking it was my fault somehow. Or like it could keep
100%.
going, you know, like I knew there would be something. So I needed him gone, and I needed a process, and then I needed to return. And that's when Tiffany, like you asked me earlier about the looking in the mirror, I walked upstairs and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, my eyes were like, I had like the dark circles, and they were like concaved, and I was just like, I didn't even recognize myself. And really, like, actually the eyes, they were vacant. Like, nobody was home.
You've lost yourself because you put
Yeah.
everything into this family unit, but then you were, someone that didn't treat you right, and you went through everything, and now you're processing, trying to figure it out. But when a woman puts everything, or a man puts everything into a family unit, sometimes they lose themselves. But then when they're also mistrusted, when they're betrayed trust, it's a whole nother level of what you go through.
Oh yeah, betrayal, trauma, pretty much. Yeah, there's like a whole area for that, just that, right? So I decided in that moment when I saw myself staring back at me and nobody was home, I was like, holy crap, we gotta get Kimberly back, because she used to be like awesome. What happened? Where did she go? You know? So I think in that moment it was like I could hear my kids downstairs and stuff, and I was like, when you're that depleted, it's very hard to get the energy and the grit and the perseverance or even the determination to fight for yourself. So I had to like reach from somebody else. Like, what was it? Like, why would I stay? Why would I fight for myself, I guess is the moral of the story. And the only thing I could think of at the time was for my children. They didn't have anybody else. Their dad was not stable. And so who was going to take care of them? And so mother's love trumped anything else. And I knew in order to take care of them, I had to fix myself. In order to take care of them properly, I had to take care of myself. So that was like a whole year and a whole another year. So, because it took me 3 years to really get divorced. The first year, the first year, I wanted to work on our marriage. I wanted to do it separately. Mm-hmm. I wanted him to do counseling. I wanted me to do counseling. And then I wanted us to do couples therapy or couples counseling. It didn't go as planned, believe it or not. I was the only one that kind of participated. He would pepper his in like every once in a while. Mm-hmm. But anytime we tried to get together and do couples therapy, it just didn't work out. And, after that year, I told him a year, and I made that commitment with myself and to my family. And I wouldn't let him back in the home, really, COVID did strike, and he ended up suffering an injury in his he shattered his collarbone.
Oh, wow.
So when that happened, I brought him back into the home for a short period of time. But then I found out he was still cheating. And so I kicked him back out. I was like, get out of here, man.
Well, which is amazing that you were able to do, because a lot of women, when they've gone through the mental and emotional abuse, the man or woman, depending on the abusive situation, they have such a tie on them that, like you said earlier, they make you feel like it's your fault. They make you feel like it's not theirs. They're the innocent one. It's because you did something, I did this, Mm-hmm. And so for you to be able to kick them back out says a lot about your character and a lot about your strength.
Well, I feel it's hard because looking back, I didn't feel strong. I felt so weak, and he was really in my head, but there was just something just gnawing at me. And it was you gotta fight. You gotta fight for those kids. And it's time. I've silenced myself long enough. And so anyways, after that year, we decided to sell the place, our home. And, I went my way, he went his way. And then I ended up filing for divorce year number 2, right after the first year. So then it would take us 2 more years to try to figure it all out. Mm-hmm. I still got 50-50, which is crazy to me because I submitted to the courts all this different evidence that showed that he was not mentally stable. He failed drug testing. Submitted police reports. So the drug testing, the police reports, the mere fact that he went out and bought a gun, and all these different things, and that he admitted himself to Bridges, which is a mental care facility. And he still got 50-50. And so that was...
Because Arizona's a 50-50 state, pretty much.
And it's very dad-friendly. It's very dad-friendly. So I got divorced in December of 2022. It finalized. But a few months prior to that, October of 2022, my body started breaking out with psoriasis. And it was crazy. I don't know if you know what psoriasis is, but it's this autoimmune skin condition that can lay dormant. And you don't even know you have it until all of a sudden it's triggered somehow or some way. And the only other time that I knew I had psoriasis was when I did the IVF process. I thought I was having some sort of allergic reaction to all the medication. But come to find out, they biopsied it. I have psoriasis. So then it went away after I had River. And then all of a sudden it came back and it was just like spreading. And I'm like, oh my gosh, am I this stressed? Because I knew it could be triggered by stress.
Yes.
But I had, by this point, now become a yoga instructor and like was into all this mindfulness stuff. Because again, that first year of me separating from my husband, I had to get myself better. And that's kind of where my yoga journey really started to like become intense. Because I had done yoga on and off for many, many years. But it like came to me like, I don't want to say like a revelation, but kind of like a revelation. It came to me when I said to myself, I need to heal my children. How do I heal my children? I heal myself. How do I heal myself? And I just sat there. Like I asked the question out loud, how do I heal myself? And it was like light bulb. Get into breath work, get into meditation, and start your yoga practice.
Most people don't go to it as healing themselves, but you do have to heal yourself. It's like when you're on an airplane. They say you have to put on your mask first before you can help someone else. Mm-hmm. And you did exactly that. You put on your mask first so you could help your kids. Sometimes women or men go to help their kids first, but it's never really successful because they haven't helped themselves first. And I think that's a key point in your story.
Well, yeah, and then what does healing look like, too? Mm-hmm. It's like how deep are we going to go into the healing? Are we going to look at the parts of ourselves or of our past or whatever it is that's weighing us down, that's keeping us crippled or chained to the lack of like freedom that we experience in our own body? So I think knowing that about myself, I knew that I wanted to feel alive, and I had felt muted for so long. I wanted my voice back when I had been silenced. I wanted, like I could go on and on. I wanted to feel strong when he told me I was weak. You know, I wanted to feel capable when he told me I wasn't. And all these different things. And it was like I had this fire to prove him wrong and to prove that old limiting thought, that the thoughts that Kimberly used to feel wrong. I was like, no. I'm strong. I've got to be strong. I have to be strong to show my kids that I'm strong, that they can do it. It was like all these different things started happening. And so I started diving into my yoga practice, started studying breath work, started studying meditation. And then I started figuring out the vagus nerve and how the vagus nerve, if you can create better vagal tone in your body, you don't have as many reactive responses to anxiety. You come from a place of more like responding. When the anxiety hits, you have control a little bit more to how you show up in stressful or anxiety-ridden situations. And I was like, this is it. And then I started to feel so much better, right? So now we're fast forwarding. I know I'm taking you all over the place, but that's kind of where my journey began. Mm-hmm. And then in October of 2022, the psoriasis was breaking out. And I'm like, okay, whoa, I must be super stressed. Which makes sense. At that time I was working, I was doing retreats. I do wellness retreats. I was working as a yoga instructor. I was still going through my divorce. I was also trying to create Flower Child Adventures. Mm-hmm. So there was just all these different things. And then at the same time, I was still being bullied by my ex. Wow. You know, like he's still texting me every time we talk, like I'm the bad parent, you know, so there was a lot of like projecting on his part still towards me. So that was in October, and I was just kind of monitoring the psoriasis and trying to eat better, trying to calm myself down by all these different techniques that I had learned. And then I started a lot of red light therapy, cold therapy, all these different modalities, but it wasn't going away. And then I found a lump. I found a lump in my left breast. And for some reason, I don't know, my brain wasn't putting it together at the time. I was like, this is weird. I must have like a swollen lymph node or something, like, because I'm young and I'm healthy. And nobody wants to admit that they potentially have breast cancer, you know? And besides the psoriasis and besides the lump, I felt great. You know, like I was finally living my life. I was traveling. I was doing all these things.
You were finally getting away from the situation that you needed to get away from.
And I was healing, and I was like, this can't be because I'm healing, you know? But you forget that sometimes a part of healing is you get it. Like your body starts to feel safe enough to let go of those energies that get stuck within you. Mm-hmm. And so I really feel like my breast cancer came from trauma. And so I found the lump. I felt it. It was on my left side. I just watched it for a few weeks. I called my sister and she was like, yeah, I mean, the statistics are on your side, you know, like 80% of them are just like swollen lymph nodes or they're like cysts or different things like that. But then it's crazy because in November, like just a month later, I was sitting with my 9-year-old at the time, Colton. He's now 10, but 9-year-old at the time, and we were out on my yoga patio in my little egg chair. I don't know if you've seen those chairs, but they're so cute, right? And I created this yoga patio when I moved as like this sanctuary place where I could do my meditation and my yoga and my breath work. And I was sitting out there looking at the stars with Colton underneath the blanket, sipping our tea. And we were just like having this moment where you didn't even have to say words. We were just like snuggling up, you know? And then out of the mouth of Babes, man, he goes, Mom, are you sick? And I was like, no, I'm not sick. Why would you ask that, buddy? In my mind, I'm thinking, because he knows I have psoriasis, you know, because I had like been complaining about it. It itches. It itches bad. And he was like, I don't know. I just have this really bad feeling you don't have cancer. And I was like, what? Like, I hadn't told anybody about the lump besides my sister. And she's not calling up my 9-year-old to tell him, you know? And he's like, you don't have cancer? I just had this really bad feeling and I don't want you to die. And I just sat there.
Talk about a sign, someone that wants you here on earth. Holy cow.
God's like yelling at me, giving me all these signs, and I don't listen. And he's like, okay, I got to send it to the child, apparently.
Because the child will listen.
And then she will listen to the child. You know, but isn't that how women are?
100%.
I feel like they just go and they go and they go and they put themselves last. And even though at that time in my life, I was thinking I was putting myself first, but I still was pushing my physical body and not listening to my physical body in a lot of ways. I was like, you're capable, let's go. And suck it up. Like, how many times
we tell ourselves that a lot, right?
You don't have another option. You're a single mom of 3, and, you know, my ex doesn't pay any child support, doesn't pay any alimony, so you better hustle. You gotta hustle. And this all will make sense later kind of situation. So when Colton told me that, I was like startled. But then you also go into denial. You're like, no. But wait. But my mind immediately went to that lump in my breast. I was like, this is so crazy. I put him to bed. I go downstairs. I put all my kids to bed. I go downstairs and I start like palpating my breast again. And I was like, whoa, it actually hurts now. And so I did research online and they were saying that if it hurts, it actually more than likely isn't breast cancer. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, wait, is that another lump? Like, is that another one? Like, I couldn't tell.
You couldn't tell.
Because I had such small breasts, such a dense breast tissue that like I could feel my ribs pretty much through my breasts. And so I couldn't even tell. And except for that one that really stuck out. So then I made this doctor's appointment and that doctor's appointment, but long story short, ultrasound and a mammogram later, I had 5 lumps, 1 on my right and 4 on my left that they ended up biopsying.
Oh, wow.
And out of those 5, 3 came back malignant. And then that was in January, I found that out of 2023. So a month after my divorce, I found out that I had stage 2 invasive ductal carcinoma breast cancer, which was estrogen progesterone positive, which means it was fueled off my hormones.
Yep.
And immediately, my oncologist, I'm like, how am I not knowing that my hormones are so out of whack? You would think that I would people that usually have hormones that are out of whack gain a lot of weight, or they have like all these different signs. And she was like, no, this is a different type. It's not like your whole body is estrogen progesterone. This is like cancer cells. And so she was trying to break it down to me, but you know what she said to me? What might have been a big cause of it? My IVF, with River.
Wow.
So she goes, a tumor of this size, because I think it measured about 7 millimeters or something like that.
Wow.
Not milliliters. That's like liquid. Centimeters. What am I even? Milliliters. Come on now. But she said it could have potentially been growing about 6 years, but that the IVF, them messing with my hormones and stuff like that, really can just like spark something within you and like turn that cancer cancerous cell that's laying dormant into an actual cancerous cell. So it's kind of crazy because it could have been benign until that. Like, who knows, really?
Yeah.
You know, they're just kind of all speculating. But I just find it so fascinating that whole journey just kind of like lines up. Like, it all is like entangled. My life journey and how it's kind of led me here. So in April of 2023, I had my mastectomy, which was, I mean, in a story in and of itself on how I decided, because I'm so holistic, it's crazy. Obviously, I mean, I had my last 2 children without any medication. Like, I had a natural birth, and
that's amazing in itself.
I mean, Colton was 10 pounds, 6 ounces. Can we even talk about that?
Oh my goodness. Talk about like going natural and that might kill a few.
Jeez. No, so I'm just so holistic, and I absolutely believe in the power of the mind and the power of the body. And if you supply the body and the mind all this like positive energy, all this food, all the, you know, like all these different things to support the body, whether it's nutritional or mental or spiritual, that your body does have the ability to heal itself. However, I do also understand that there are times where we need to utilize Western medicine. And so I was kind of, again, at this crossroads in my life where I'm like, do I go left or do I go right? I have got 3 kids I've got to care for. Like, what is going to help me to survive for them? And also at this point now, I want to live for myself. Now I've created Flower Child Adventures kind of just briefly. I haven't actually, done anything with Flower Child Adventures at the moment, but I was doing retreats and I had created Flower Child Adventures to do, like, initially Flower Child was meant to take people out on hiking trails. And I'm not a hiking guide, but I'll take people out on these hiking trails and hike with them. And then at the end, we would do like some sound therapy. We do some journaling, some mindfulness exercises, some breathing, some meditation. And it's really about connecting people to themselves and to the environment in which we live in, And
I think what you said is really important. The mind is so much stronger than what people remotely understand. Like you did say, yes, we do need modern medicine sometimes, 100%, but our mind can control so much more than we lead on to. And yoga is a great way to get to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And people, I think, a lot of times, just in the society that we live in, they want to take the power away from us and make us reliant on different types of systems, But for me and my journey and my journey of my lifetime, throughout my lifetime, I've seen things that I just can't deny. I can see, like, let's take my ex, for example. His mental state affected him so much that he was passing out, vomiting, losing weight. So I'm like, if that's a reality going this way, then it has to be the reality in reverse. And that's really kind of what got me into all this mindfulness, I guess, and just healing and that whole process of seeing him undergo what he went through and then trying to find myself, heal my kids. And so at that time I had done one Flower Child Adventure, I had done one wellness retreat, and I was a yoga instructor, and I was like, I was sitting in meditation on my yoga patio, and I asked the question out loud, which is crazy. I kind of talk out loud sometimes because it gets so...
It does.
It gets so compiled in my brain, and they call it almost like the monkey brain, when you just keep thinking, and it's like this circling of going on in my head, but it gets very convoluted. And so I was sitting out on my yoga patio, and I asked the question out loud, how do I get women to my retreats? Or help women and get them to my retreats, because I know they will benefit when they get there. How do I get people out on the trails? And how do I help myself and still help my children and be able to be a single mom, provide for them, and also be available? Like, as a single mom, if you're working all these jobs, more than likely, you're not going to be there for your kids very often, And so for me, I wanted to provide them with this life of fullness and love and happiness, and then also their mom. So how could I do it all? And again, it was like light bulb turn on. And I immediately thought, which did not come from me. It did not come from me. you need to get into the school districts or the school systems. And I was like, what? Like, what do you mean? School systems. And it was like, you need to create some sort of after school activity that includes yoga, meditation, breath work, mindfulness. Like that's all, like that was the response I got. And so a few weeks later, I went in to go get my son, pick up my son, Colton, for counseling. I had both of my oldest daughter and my second oldest child, so Ashlyn and Colton. As soon as I became separated from my ex, I had them both in counseling. I think it's important. It's important. They're going through stuff too, you know? I think a lot of people that go through divorce, they're very much like in their feelings for them, and then their ex is also in their feelings, and then they sometimes forget about the children because the children are so like, they can get over things pretty easy. They can deal with things. They seem happy, you know, but in reality, they're struggling. They're struggling to understand what's going on with mom and dad.
100%.
Yeah, and they can feel it. Even if mom and dad keep it together in front of them, they can feel the energy. And so I had them in counseling, and I went to pick up my son, and I was sitting there in the little waiting area, and I don't know what came over me. I was like walking to the front desk, and my mouth opened, and the following words came out. It was like, hi there. Hello, I'm Kimberly. I'm curious to know if you guys offer any after-school programs to children that include yoga, breathwork, meditation, anything like that. And she just looked at me like dumbfounded, like, what is she talking about? So I said it again. And then she was like, no, I don't know. And I was like, do you have a phone number that I could call? So from there, I called this number and that number, and I finally, after weeks of trying to get a hold of somebody, I got a hold of somebody, and then all of a sudden, it just went from there. Now I do this after-school program. It's a 6-week course for children, and it's 1 hour long after school. But we do a lot of mindfulness activities, like I just said, yoga, breathwork, meditation, but also journaling, also games. Because I have 1 hour with these special souls after school, and that 1 hour, I want to make an impact in their brains that they will remember. I want to have fun with them, obviously. And a lot of times learning comes through play.
Oh, 100%.
I want them, most of these kids have been sitting in school all day long, and then they come to me, and I don't want to just sit on a yoga mat, and I don't want to just teach at them. So I've got to get down on their level, and that's where Flower Child comes into play.
So what would you say, what would you say the purpose of Flower Child is?
The purpose? There's so many purposes. How can I consolidate it?
Because it's an amazing program. You're helping these kids learn how to look inward and going, what's going on with my body? How do I breathe to relax my stress, to get rid of my depression, to do these things? You're teaching so much. So when you thought about bringing this together into the schools, what was the full purpose of it?
I sit in silence because it kind of makes me a little emotional. But I see a little bit of myself and a little bit of my kids and these kids. The purpose is to give them tools, so that they can navigate this world, this chaotic, stressful world. The stresses, they're never going to go away. They're just going to keep coming. And if anything, it's going to get harder out there. Everybody realizes that by this point, right? But how can I help these children tap into themselves and find their own inner strength? How do I help them learn how to self-regulate their emotions and bring that power that they have within them back? A lot of times they're silenced just like we are. They're told from their parents, from their teachers, to their friends, to their grandparents, all these different, they're children, and they're always told what to do or what not to do. Actually, it's more, don't do this than you're doing something right. And so a lot of these kids have very low self-esteem. What's the number one cause of death in teens? Suicide. Their self-esteem, by the time they hit middle school, is pretty much gone. And it's crazy. And so what's the goal of Flower Child? The goal is to empower these children so that they know nothing's wrong with them. They know that they are powerful beings and they can navigate this world, and they can not just navigate it, but that they can triumph. You know, I said, I think one time on my Instagram that when I first announced that I had breast cancer, that my goal was not to live. My goal was to thrive.
There's a difference between living and thriving.
Oh, so many people go through this life and they're just taking the steps and they're not seeing the magic. And there's magic everywhere. They're not really feeling into their body. And that's, again, I wanted to feel alive. And how do I feel alive? I have to thrive. You know, it's not just going through the motions. So I created that out on my yoga patio, and it just kind of snowballed into this whole situation where I'm at now. And now I'm in 2 schools, and I just got clearance to be in another 5 schools.
Amazing.
And I have a meeting next week with a Montessori school, and I just think this should be in every school.
It should be, because the kids start from the young ones. I mean, adults need help too, but the young ones, man, to empower them and help them learn how to understand their own emotions, how to deal with their own emotions, how to deal with the stress of going to a home that might not be conducive, or anxiety of the kids that don't have lunch, or things that are going on, their external circumstances that they can't control. But if they can look inward and learn how to deal with that, it's going to empower them in a way that this should be in every school in the nation. This shouldn't be just here. This should be everywhere. I mean, what you're creating here is empowering people, and that's what it's all about.
Thank you.
Now, you do retreats as well, and is that underneath Flower
Child Adventure.
Yes, the Flower Child. I wanted to make sure I said that right. Is that
she
underneath?
pauses for dramatic effect.
Yeah. Is that underneath that company?
So honestly, I was with another company.
Okay.
And but I really want to step into the fullness of Flower Child Adventures, and I want to kind of transition my retreats into more of an adventure, because what I have found is that when you spend too long in your feelings, too long examining, too long sitting in the becoming or the healing phase, you can get stuck there. And those feelings can weigh you down. And I want people to really start to evoke the inner child and play. Just like when I watch these children at school, at the program, right? After school program. When I have days where I just, like you come in with a plan, you think you know what's going on as an adult, and then they come in there and they're all restless. You don't know what the heck is going on in their bodies. You're watching them, and I'm trying to assess. It's a very intuitive program in a lot of ways, because if one child comes in and they're rambunctious, I've got to change the whole thing. I'm trying to get this child and this child they are all needing to interact. And I want them to learn how to interact with each other without yelling at each other, how to interact with each other without bringing the other person down, right? We are doing also team building exercises. We've got first graders all the way up to 6th graders. How does a first grader interact with a 6th grader? And how should a 6th grader interact with a first grader? And so I've just kind of been observing, and it's been this beautiful process to watch unfold. And how when I can step into or embody Flower Child, and not Kimberly the adult with responsibilities and a regimen, right? But embody Flower Child as this free spirit who can play and get on their level and talk with the children on their level in a way, in a language that they can understand. Wow, the difference. Now they start to process. Now they're interpreting it. Now it's embedding within their mind. Right? And they're taking it home and they're excited about it, versus before when I'm just teaching and preaching to them, right? So it's that same mindset. Now I'm taking it into my retreats, my adventures. I don't even know if I want to call it a retreat. I want to call it an adventure.
The adventures are very important. I think what you said is so important. If you stay in your emotions too long, you can get stuck there. And it can actually put you into depression if you're not careful. So what I've always said is it's like a box. you open up the box so you can deal with them, but sometimes you got to put them aside so you can continue to implement and continue to create and continue to step forward. Mm-hmm. But I think what you said, again, is so important as an adventure. I think as adults, so often we forget to dream and to play. And that's where the creativity comes, right? That's where you can create so much more. The reason why I think on the back porch you were able to create this in mind, because all of a sudden everything was still. It wasn't like you were running and going. So often that's what we're doing because we have so many responsibilities. It's so important to stop and have peace and be able to connect with our souls, because our souls will talk to us. Our spirit will talk to us. And we have to have that time. I think your story is so incredible because so often when you come from an abusive relationship, women die there and don't thrive.
Yeah.
And then not only that, you started a company, but during that start of that company, then you learn you have breast cancer. Mm-hmm. I mean, not just one thing, not just two things. I mean, you got hit with so much it's not even funny. And you kept on fighting back. So the question I have is, if you were talking to someone else here going through your situation, what would you say to them? Because you have so much insightfulness for this that a lot of people don't go through it. You've gone through it at your age.
What humbling words. I had that my first surgery in April, and then I had 2 more this year, so I've had a total of 3 surgeries.
And you're still running your companies. I mean, so many people would give up by now, and you are so inspiring for this.
It's an honor. I think you said earlier that it's not funny, but being able to find some humor in all of it has really helped me. Like being able to kind of look back and being like, well, I wouldn't have decided to do this if this wouldn't have happened. I wouldn't have made this step if this wouldn't have happened. And being able to see all the synchronicities and how they line up and how all of a sudden now I'm on a podcast talking with Tiffany. So I think, and now I've created this thing for the children, and none of it would have happened if I wouldn't have decided one day to choose me. Why not me? Why am I not as important as you or as my children? And I think to those women that are struggling, knowing that they're powerful and that they don't feel powerful, I'll tell you that much, they feel weak. But what does strength look like? Strength, perseverance. It looks like getting back up even when you don't want to. It looks like crying alone in the shower. It looks like running and cry. Like, how many times did I go on a run? Just like, I'm just sprinting it out, but I'm crying and peeling yourself off the ground and finding that inner strength, even if you don't feel strong. I didn't feel strong, but I wanted to believe that I was strong. I wanted to feel those emotions. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
So you have to sit with that. You say to yourself, it's almost like you're manifesting your future. You are manifesting your future.
Which is so important. I love that you use that word.
But it's true. Like the power of imagination. We have to sit and imagine what it would feel like, what it looks like. You don't have to have the whole picture created, but you have to sit and be like, what would it feel like if I was badass? What would it feel like if I was a woman and hear me roar? And then you pull on the women that came before you, and you start pulling on the women that are around you. Like, you gain that energy, that strength from your tribe. And I think so make sure that whoever you're surrounding yourself by, that they honor and respect and see your worth. And if they don't, it's time to get new friends or a new tribe. You need all the strength that you can gather, and it doesn't just come from within, it comes from your tribe of people. And I had a really good tribe of people. I had my family, I had my friends, and I had women that had gone through it before me. And so I think opening your mouth, we stay silent because we're like embarrassed or something for like having a human experience. I'm not really sure why we let that conditioned thought seep into our head and then we believe it. Because I was one of them. I stayed quiet and people had to like come to me and be like, what's going on? And I was embarrassed and ashamed of what had happened. Like, it was my fault, you know? I mean, we all have a piece of the puzzle to play here, right? But having that sort of shame and guilt, it's sad, I think, for women to live in that realm when we're just another human having an experience. And isn't that why we came to this earth? Isn't that why we're here? Without the experiences, would we ever really experience the difference between joy and love and pain and sorrow? Like, would we really know the difference between that sorrow and the joy? You know, the good and the bad, or the ugly and the pretty, you know, like, all of it is integral. How do you say it? Important. I'll go with that word. It's important.
It is, because you can't have one without the other. You don't know happiness unless you've had sadness. You don't know struggle. I mean, you have to have all these emotions to really see the triumph of a person. And our struggles, our triumphs, it creates our stories. And our stories are what create us, right? Like, and that's why I'm doing the podcast and all this, is because I really do feel there are so many stories out there that need to be heard.
I love that you're doing the podcast too, because it gives us a platform to tell our stories, to have this voice, and for other people to hear that they're not alone.
They're not.
You know, they're not alone. Like, I think, you know, initially when I started my Instagram, it wasn't for Flower Child Adventures. It was for Flower Child. Yep. It was for me to be able to share what it was I was going through, and for other people to be able to connect so that they knew that they weren't alone. Now it's kind of, you know, transitioned into part of my business, right? But I have started running into so many people with either divorce where they relate to me, or IVF and they relate to me, or breast cancer and they relate to me, or being a single mom and they relate to me, right? So the more you can open your mouth and share your experience, like in this tasteful way, not in a like, woe is me, but like sharing your experience helps you to have real, lasting, deep connections with other people, because we're not just living on this superficial realm or plane, right? We're actually like I had this experience, and hopefully it will help you to have a little bit of an easier time going through what you're going through. And we're all connected.
We are. And when we normalize it, it helps. And when we have these platforms, it helps other people see, maybe I can do this, or maybe I can step up and share my voice, and maybe I can get out of this situation that I should be out of. I am beautiful. I am strong. I am amazing, because that voice is what gets us to our story and helps us get out of situations and get to where we need to be. Yeah. And that's why I was so incredibly excited to talk to you today, because you have so many things that connect with so many other people. And you've gone, like I said, you've gone through so many things that normally at 40 years old, 36 when you found out, people don't have that type of story. I mean, you've been through so much, but you've triumphed in a way that you don't see many people do, because you kept on coming back. And that's what this story is all about, is you kept peeling yourself off, like you talked about. I'm gonna get back up. I got this. I can do this. Because going through a divorce and then finding out about cancer and IVF and all those things, it's such an emotional roller coaster that someone that hasn't gone through it cannot remotely understand. But someone that's in it then can look at your story and go, because of her, I'm going to stand up today. Because of her, I'm going to be able to get to the next step. Because of her, I'm going to find this strength and continue. So, Kimberly, I am 100% so excited to share your story, and hopefully we can get out there to so many people. But, and I'm so excited, like I said before, that Flower Child Adventures should be in every school. And your adventures that you're creating people need to reach out and follow you on Instagram, because your Instagram is so inspiring. Like, I follow it and I love it. And not only that, we actually are having you come into the office today and share this yoga experience with us, because I feel like it's so important. So I appreciate you being on today. I appreciate you telling your story, because I know it can be emotional. And I'm excited for people to get strength from you.
Thank you. Yeah, you guys can follow me at flowerchild.adventures, or I have a website, that's titled flowerchildadventures.org. And I haven't yet posted my next adventure, but I really want to start bringing people with me on these different excursions. And then also, kind of blending in the mindfulness. So like the yoga, breathwork, all that kind of stuff. But it's going to be definitely, let's evoke that inner child. Let's play, let's connect, let's get out of our heads and into our bodies, and let's explore. So I mean, again, it's just an honor. I'm very humbled to be here. Thank you for having me and sharing my story. And to all those individuals out there listening, there are no words. I feel for them if they're going through it, because it is an emotional roller coaster. And one day you'll be high, and the next day you'll be low. And then you might stay there for a long time and think that you might not get up. And maybe you come across this podcast, and I hope I can give some sort of inspiration for sure. But it really has to come from within them, because this podcast, my inspiration will only go so far. Will only give them so much energy. And just diving down and finding that grit and that knowing, it's there. It's just been conditioned or programmed out of you somehow. But when you were a child, you knew that you were awesome. There was some point in your life where you started to lose that, and we got to get you back to that child that knows. And your voice, like your specific voice, is needed in this world. Only you have your specific lens, only your experiences. And we need more voices just like mine, more stories to be shared, so that we can really start to uplift not just each other, but this planet as a whole.
100%. I love it. If you haven't followed her, you need to follow her now. You need to go on one of her adventures, because literally it is what this world needs. 100%. I am so excited. I appreciate you coming on today, where we share triumphs of women and men all around, and we're excited to continue to share. Thank you so much, Kimberly.
Thank you so much for having me, Tiffany.
Thanks for tuning in today to The Road Less Traveled. If you're organizing an event, workshop, or simply planning something exciting and would like to have Tiffany Rosenbaum join you, or want to have her on your podcast, visit TiffanyMRosenbaum.com and click on Book Tiffany to get started.